Hello, what's up? Name's Eric. I'm a scooter rider from Norway. I'm 21 years old, and this is my show or podcast or whatever you want to call it, Freestyle Philosophy. Here I'd like to discuss mindsets, ideas, lessons, philosophies, everything to improve what it is I am working to achieve. It's almost like a journal, but a visual one, and one where I can speak to others and speak to you, the audience, and get my ideas in order and share a little here and there of lessons that I've learned or problems that I have already solved. Although there are a lot more problems to be solved than the ones I have figured out and conquered myself. We all have obstacles. We all have different issues, goals we want to achieve, paths we want to take, and paths we want to avoid. We all want something great. And that doesn't have to be just scootering, that could be whatever. I am a scooter rider, so I speak from my experience as a scooter rider, but I'm very interested in philosophy and mindsets and everything to enhance your experience, essentially, to become better and to develop yourself. That's what this is to me. Process of documenting what I have figured out and doing that as I'm trying to figure out a lot more, if that makes sense, because I'm only 21 and I can't say I have figured out a lot. But I feel like although our problems and issues and obstacles and roadblocks kind of show themselves in different specific ways in our lives, they kind of all tend to be a little bit similar. They're like universal problems that every human being face, whatever the specific art form or sport or career or work each person does. Because when I've spoken to friends of mine who are pursuing different paths or different sports, we seem to have a lot of the same issues, whether it be injuries, whether it be work related, whether it be something like this, being creative online, producing content, whether it be school, whatever. And so I feel like we all have some of the same problems, and by no means am I some expert at anything. I hope to one day be, but perhaps there's something that I have solved in my past, like an injury or motivation or routines, whatever, that I could maybe help you get better at, so that you don't have to go through the same obstacles as I have. Especially for me, that would be injuries and motivation. I feel like in my specific domain as a scooter rider, we get injured a lot, especially our knees and our ankles suffers, whether it be chronic sort of inflammation type pains that you get over time, or an immediate emergency, or sorry, an immediate injury like breaking a bone, breaking your ankle, something like that. It's a reoccurring theme in the sport of scootering, and in my opinion, a lot of that can be prevented through proper training, because I had an injury some years ago, an inflammation in my knee that occurred through pushing myself too much after already having hit my knee once, and then I got something called bursitis in my knee, which is basically too much fluid and sort of inflammation and whatnot, and damage in the tiny little I think it's like a pillow on top of your kneecap that takes impact. That thing kind of got swollen and was like that for months. I'd say from September until May, I think, around May, close to that. And it was so stupid, because I could first have prevented it by simply just not riding when I had the beginning, or when I sort of started to feel the pain, but I didn't, because I rushed, because I had a competition to prepare for, and I was impatient. And second, if I just had prepared myself better by actually training, because when I was younger, when I was at that age, I'd say I was around 18, 17, 18. Then, and before that, I never worked out. I hated it. We did it at like in PE in school, and it was like okay, but I thought it was boring as it could be, as anything. I just wanted to ride, and so there was some certain workouts here and there, once in a blue moon, but nothing sustained. Cardio is one of my weaknesses for sure. Strengthening, not into it. And so there was only a matter of time before I got a real injury, because I had dodged the bullets of injuries for many years, as my homies, my good friends that I rode with growing up and when I was younger, who were actually really good and doing it real well in competitions. Shout out to Paul. Actually, when I think about it, most of them got some sort of injuries, whether it be like an ankle tear or a sort of like a meniscus ACL type situation. Most of them got something, and I, when I'm thinking of it, never got anything. Just some pains here and there, but no break, no anything. My worst injury is another one that happened some years later. I'm not going to talk on it today, but it couldn't have been prevented by strengthening, because I kind of got my handlebar in between my legs, and so that was one of those, like, I think it's like the weirdest injury ever, and it was real bad. But I feel like I heard this somewhere from like paraphrased from a very famous doctor and physiotherapist called Kelly Starrett. I feel like he said something about 2% of injuries are unavoidable, like say you're in a car and there's a car crash and outside of your control, and then 98% of injuries could be prevented by training. And so, to make a long story short, I had a sort of wake-up call, because the whole winter, and when I say winter, that's a long time, because I live in Norway, you can see the snow outside behind me. The whole winter, from then, and actually parts of fall too, I had this injury and it didn't go away. I even was out traveling. I was at a competition in Barcelona. I was for a while in the Netherlands, where I was supposed to go practice the big ramps, but of course I couldn't ride, so I basically was just a tourist. Then to a competition in Denmark, where I did a couple like chill lines one day, but I couldn't really ride. I still had like insane inflammation in my knee. Like, you know, when you do ride with knee pads and there's like a big swollen part underneath there, then that's not good when you land and slide on your knee pads. It was so bad that I couldn't do this with my knee. It was the other knee, but I'm just showing. I couldn't, like, because it was so inflamed, it like stopped. So if I went like this, say on a trick, or just when stretching, or when sliding on my knee, it was like there wasn't enough room in here for all of the swelling when I went like this, when I stretched. And so it would hurt like crazy. Like so much so that I was afraid of just bending my knee too much for the possible extra injuries that could occur. And this was my wake-up call for sure. I had pushed off training for scootering for years and years and years. I have ridden for I think it's almost over 10 years. It has to be more than 10 years now, when I come to think about it, because I started not too early, but kind of early, and was a bit back and forth in the beginning. Regardless, I dodged that bullet. I had like a general fitness, and wasn't fat or anything because I rode so much, of course, and I did get like some basic balance, jump, and coordination from riding. But then this injury happened. I can actually see if I can find the injury, because I hit my knee several times, as I said, and then it kind of was one too many fails. And you know, end of story. I couldn't ride properly for half a year or something, and it pained me so much. It was so hard, and that got me into working out. I started at home, started practicing balance moves, which is actually probably the most essential thing to do for scooter riding. Especially for preventing injuries, because you work all those small muscle groups that you need for riding, especially in weird positions, like when you land on one knee and your body kind of rotates over your leg. Like weird unnatural positions like that is very effective to work on, or like I should say prepare for, with balance and stability workouts, so that you don't end up like tearing your meniscus or something like that, because I think that's what happens to people that tear their meniscus or ACL, being the tendons and the stuff around your knees, which is a very serious injury. I know people who have that has happened to. Sorry. I know people that has gotten these sort of injuries, and it has taken them over a year to get back. And actually, come to think of it, I saw one homie getting back at his local today, and he have probably been off riding for over a year. Shout out to you, Thane. Hope you listen to this. Hope you're well. Whatever. To get back to my point, I think he also kind of went over his leg, got in a weird position and twisted his knee. And I think a lot of that can be prevented from balance stuff. That's what I got into, because that's where you sort of practice isometric strength, being isometric, being still strength, let's call it, in a very bro sciencey language. And that was kind of nice for me at the time, because I couldn't move my knee that much, because of all the swelling. And so practicing general strength in isometric stability type balance moves, just standing on one leg, having some tennis balls, dropping them up and down while I stand on a minor bent leg. Those type of things helped a lot because it sort of helped me build strength and create blood flow without actually having any pain, because I wasn't in the range of motion that creates pain. Though if I would have been doing a traditional squat or something like that, then I probably would have felt the pain a lot more. And to show you the specific fall, this is it. So I kind of just went to my knee. It wasn't anything internal, it was much more just a very hard impact that happened several times. I think I had already hit my knee a couple days before this fall. And mind you, I had knee pads too, so there's that. It could have been a lot worse. But I think it could have been prevented by being more resilient and then of course taking time off. Point of this whole long story, and I did make a workout video earlier today. It probably did already come out before this freestyle philosophy episode, but the point I'm trying to make, to get back to the core of this video, is that we as scooter riders tend to forget to work out. We focus too much on our sport and too little on actually training, and we should focus a lot on our sport, because you do want to improve skills. There's two certain aspects of a sport, in my opinion. There's skills, which is basically, especially for freestyle sports like scootering, there's skills, which is basically all of our tricks, getting better. And then there's traits. You have two aspects. Traits is like strength, balance, jump, speed, mobility, resilience, your ability to take impact, and all of these different modalities of fitness. And if you haven't developed them in at least a generic level, like a general level, then there's only a matter of time before you suffer for it and you get injured. And a lot of these injuries a rider suffers from could have been prevented from training, from improving your traits, especially general strength, and a lot of stability work, because stability work is what helps us, especially with these kind of twisting type movements where we fall weirdly and end up twisting our ankle or our knee. I think a lot of those can be prevented. And another part which I didn't touch on is proprioception, which is basically, from what I understand, your ability to feel your body and to know where your body is in space. And that's something balance helps a lot with. And you kind of have to have some good level of proprioception when it comes to riding, both in general when you're doing tricks and also when you're failing, because when you fail and you fall, you can't always see where your legs and your arms are at, because you enter all of these weird falls, and you kind of have to feel your way there sometimes. And so having general body control will never hurt you for scooter riding. And of course it shouldn't really be said, but of course improving jumping and landing is something we all should benefit from. Like, be it having more pop when you jump, having harder jumps, having harder pumps to get more speed and height, or your ability to take impact, being, for example, landing hard, jumping up from a surface, and then landing and sort of decelerating and stopping the motion. This is something that happens a lot when we ride and when we fail, or even just take a big gap. And so being strong in these positions and having developed your traits for riding will definitely benefit you. And that's why I think we should all work out for scootering, whatever style we practice, and then tailor our strength and conditioning to our riding. So that, say you're a competition rider for park, then obviously you should have a very good sort of explosiveness and condition, or like a good cardio where you are able to sprint and then sort of stop and go slow and then sprint again, being just simulate, for example, the time between tricks where you pump and maybe kick or ride down a quarter pipe and then each trick. I've seen park skaters actually practice this on assault bikes, you know, the bikes that goes like this, where they, for example, are on it for 60 seconds and then have 5 seconds all out sprints in between, with like some seconds between, to simulate doing tricks. And that's an example of how you can tailor your not strengthening in this regard, but your conditioning to specific parts of riding. If you're a street rider or like more street oriented rider, then taking a lot of impact, for example, if you jump downstairs, would be beneficial. I would highly recommend checking out Neen Williams for that. He's like a beast of a skater, a street skater, and does a lot of like kind of heavy lifting and contrast training for an athletic training for skateboarding to skate better. And then if you're a street rider who's more technical, then it would be very beneficial to practice a lot of balance stuff and like jumping, spinning, landing, stopping the movement. I love to do that. Like in the gym, I'll take a Bose, you know, those half yoga balls with like a flat surface on them. I'll take one of those and I'll kind of like practice doing sort of 270s onto them and then stopping the motion and balancing and then jumping off, stuff like that. That could help you a lot too. And so, to conclude, I think working out is essential for scootering. People don't do it enough, and certainly there's better ways of going about riding than simply riding until you get injured and then being off for a season or even a year, when it could have been prevented. More likely than not, if you get injured, it's one of those 98% that could have been prevented, rather than one of those 2% that are outside of your control. If you sprain your ankle, then yeah, that could probably have been prevented from specific training. Now, I'm not an expert, as I said, so take this for what you want. This is me talking about my experience and what has definitely worked for me. I can confidently say that a lot of the training I do, like the leg day stuff I've done today, is very, very translatable to scootering and has helped me a lot. I can feel it on certain tricks, like when I do. There's one specific trick that I like to do, which is front side feeble grind on a half pipe, like a long front side feeble grind, to 270 bri flip dropping into the quarter. And I can confidently say that my training has helped me with that trick, because I train a lot of kettlebell moves and a lot of explosive exercises and a lot of rotational exercises. And when you're doing a 270 bri flip, you have to explode upwards and you have to rotate with your core, and you have to sort of have some explosion in your shoulders to get the bri down. And that's actually something kettlebell training has helped me with, because I do some kettlebell moves where I kind of try to be creative and replicate the rotation where I kind of rotate and I throw the kettlebell to the side and then stop the motion and then go back. Stuff like that has helped me a lot. And of course, general strength training and balance training, stability training. That's what I do most. Core training too, but like anti-rotation and rotation, where I kind of practice stopping movements when I have a lot of speed and rotation. That's very transferable to scootering. And then there's of course just my ability to take impact, because that has definitely improved after working out. I've been working out for a couple of years now, trying to experiment, find specific moves that helps for my riding, so that I can improve and I can prevent injury and I can ride for as many years as possible without getting injured, and to perform at my best. And jumping has helped with that. Balance, strengthening, impact, sort of impact resilience. I'll show you something I did today actually. This is just me experimenting, but you can see here that I kind of practiced taking impact and then exploding up again and then throwing the med ball in a sort of rotational movement, and stuff like that is very, very practical for scootering. To explode and to be able to rotate fast and then to stop the motion, or to jump and as you're jumping also explode with your arms. This is why I don't like the whole aspect of training with machines and isolating muscles, because if you isolate muscles, that's essentially for bodybuilding. That's not athletic, that's not functional. If you want to train for a sport, then you have to do something that's actually transferable to that sport. And so your ability to jump and produce force with your upper body at the same time, not doing like either or, not doing upper or lower at that time, but like practicing both at the same time, and like jumping and then producing force like you're doing a bri flip, or you're like sending some tail whips, whatever it might be. That's very, very, very transferable to scootering, and it will help you greatly, I promise. And just get creative with it, because it's kind of fun when you can enter into a workout like that. Here's another one from today. I kind of mixed in some contrast training with some jumping, doing some explosive work and then jumping onto the box. That's also fun, because as I said, I kind of find traditional strength training a bit boring, and so I work to get creative with it. And I'll post a lot more here, at least on YouTube. I don't know if you're seeing or listening to this on Spotify or on Apple iTunes or on YouTube or whatever, but I'm going to try to deliver these sort of freestyle episodes at least weekly, and then also some videos, either vlogs or specific videos where I touch on training for scootering, because I do work out every day. I usually, like now in the winter, I'll usually, after my morning routine and maybe some creative work where I script some videos or whatever, I go train, do strengthening, whatever the day has in store, go home, maybe work some more or eat or whatever, and then I go ride. So I basically have 2 workouts in a day, or like 2 training sessions in a day at least. And so if you want to, I'll try to film more sort of workout videos for scootering. If that's something any of you are into, check out my YouTube for that. On the podcast side of things, if you're listening on a podcast platform, this is mainly what I'm going to do here, and stay tuned because I really want to have some guests on. to actually discuss ideas, philosophies, and mindsets surrounding how to get better as a scooter rider, or as an athlete, or just a human for that matter. Like, how do you improve? How can you improve effectively? It's much more fun to actually discuss it with other people and hear what they do and sort of compare that to my own experience. And that's what I'll be doing forwards. I hope you enjoyed this. If you bore with me to the end, then thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, be it in vlog format or in this format. Peace, guys.